Oh my God. Blender and precision. Yeah, that is a can of worms that you open there. Specific to carpentry and cabinet making, when you work with the machines, if you don't teach it right, people get hurt, which in Blender won't happen. But the essence of that is, if you don't teach it right, don't teach it at all. And that goes into learning too. The student learns how to do this one thing, but probably not how to adapt it to their own projects. So they get eventually stuck in this eternal tutorial hell, basically, that they can't do anything by themselves because they don't know why they're using these tools and how to use these tools. You got Ford drivers against Ram drivers, you got Harley riders against BMW riders, you got Blender users against 3ds Max or Revit or Rhino or you name it, right? Yeah. Opinions seem to be always extreme.
Yeah. The very young me, the person who had the least amount of experience, I thought that was so important. I want to learn all the tools so I can know the best, and I'm going to use the best. And it took me years to realize that's a silly question. I think we see a lot of software wars fought over that silly lower level question.
Exactly. How do you define the best tool?
I think it's a myth. I don't think it's a thing you can define.
Exactly.
Hello and welcome to this conversation with instructor Sascha Feider. His new course, CRAFTSMAN, is a breath of fresh air for folks wanting to utilize Blender as a precision modeling tool. We're here to learn more about Sascha's background as a professional carpenter, transitioning to Blender, software wars, and more. Congrats on finishing the course. I knew we had something special when I started to see your lessons come in, and something that stuck with me right away was the fact that your workshop B-roll was so compelling. I don't know if it's because I do like hobbyist carpentry on the side, or just seeing Blender so directly influenced by, the real world or connected to a skill in the real world was really neat. And viewers also seem to resonate with that. So that's a unique type of course we've done, the first of its kind. And congrats on doing such a good job on that. This is your first tutorial course of this duration, of this scope?
Definitely. It's definitely my first full-length course. So everything else I've done before was just YouTube tutorials. And I think the longest one is an hour and 20 minutes, maybe.
Wow. Okay. Well, you seem to have a very good understanding of what makes a online course educational. Do you have any teaching background?
So what I've done in my career, I've always worked with different apprentices in the workshop. I think that the biggest difference and the biggest challenge when I started doing video tutorials for me was that you don't have that direct interaction with the student. So you don't have them beside you on the workbench and can say, yeah, maybe tweak this a little or hold the workpiece a little different. So that's where my teaching experience originally came from having the apprentice right next to me and showing him how to work on pieces and how to work machines and all that. Aside from that, I've taken a couple of courses for teaching. That's basically my background for teaching in general.
Well, it seemed to have helped in this production, so we're glad for that. One of my favorite parts of your workflow specifically was how thoroughly you use Blender tools. In reviewing your lessons, I learned at least a dozen things about tools that I use every day that I never knew, whether it's a certain setting or a certain hotkey that activates a functionality. Is this thoroughness just part of like your personality? You dig deep into whatever tools you're using or whatever thing you're putting your effort into? Or is it because you watch a lot of tutorials and you just absorbed all of these, Blender hotkeys? And
I think it's a combination of both, I would say. So I am a very detail-oriented and thorough person. So in everything I do, basically. So either I do it right or I don't do it at all. I do watch a lot of tutorials, but I also try to work with the tools after a tutorial and see what else can they do that the tutorial did not show. I think one thing that also comes from my teaching background and that kind of influences my teaching is one thing that was said to me once that stuck with me is specific to carpentry and cabinet making. When you work with the machines, if you don't teach it right, people get hurt, which in Blender won't happen. But the essence of that is, if you don't teach it right, don't teach it at all. And that goes into learning too. So that's why I think I learn everything about a specific tool once I get my hands on it.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And it's interesting that you say, or in the workshop, there is a physical hurt that can happen, absolutely. But even in online education or in digital tools with Blender, no one gets physically hurt. But I definitely see case after case of like poor techniques, or especially lack of like seeing the forest for the trees situation. So not like taught the tools, but not the principles behind the tools, that lead to a lot of wasted time and frustration. So I would agree that it works here too, like a different, not a physical hurt, but people are definitely operating under some poor teaching consequences, I would say. Absolutely.
Definitely. There's a lot of content out there where, I don't know, I'm kind of cringing about it. Especially when I see something build Model X in 5 minutes.
Right. I know what you mean.
There's no educational value in it for me. It's basically just do this, do that, do this, and then you have the finished result. You don't know why do you do it? Why do you use a certain tool in that situation? They give you exact values for, let's say, color values or noise texture or whatever. They give you the specific values, but they don't explain how they get there, why they choose something like that.
Right.
And in that moment, yeah, the student learns how to do this one thing, but probably not how to adapt it to their own projects. So they get eventually stuck in this eternal tutorial hell, basically, that they can't do anything by themselves because they don't know why they're using these tools and how to use these tools.
We're going down a trail I didn't expect, but wow, I agree with that big time. So yeah, I mentioned earlier that I love your workshop B-roll, and I think that's a very special thing about your course specifically. But you come from a carpentry background. Obviously, you're a professional carpenter. So my question is, are you more carpenter or more Blender head?
Time-wise and experience, definitely carpenter. So I've been in the carpentry industry since late 2005. That's where I had my first internship. And then it developed over a couple more internships until I started my official apprenticeship in 2006. Finished it in 2009. The benefit that I had with the company, well, I don't know if it was a benefit or a curse. A little bit of both, I guess. The company where I learned relied heavily on apprentices to keep their costs down.
Okay.
So even as an apprentice, we already had to work like a regular journeyman.
Wow. Okay.
We got not thrown in the cold water, we got dumped in the Arctic Ocean. So we had to learn very, very fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been almost 20 years now in that industry. In Blender, it's been about 4.5 now. Okay. So definitely more carpenter and cabinet maker.
Gotcha. So then tell me where you discovered Blender. How did you integrate that into your carpentry workflow?
So I opened my own company in 2020. Okay. And my first projects that I did were all with line drawings because I used CAD ever since 2006 when I started my apprenticeship. We were forced to use CAD. Okay. We learned the traditional hand-drawn stuff too, but CAD was introduced back then. I wasn't satisfied with using line drawings for my clients, because the average client doesn't know how to handle them. I mean, they get a drawing that tells them a couple of measurements, and they go like, okay, that could look good. We'll see. So I was looking for a way to better visualize my projects. And there's a bunch of options, of course. There's SketchUp, Blender, 3ds Max, and you go through all the programs. The initial factor that came into it, of course, is cost. Because when you start a new company, you got to look where do you put the money first, in the machine or into 3D software? And 3D software was low on the list. So I looked for something cheap or even free. And obviously, I knew about SketchUp. I was never a big fan of SketchUp. I don't know why. It's not a bad program or anything, but it never appealed to me. And then I remembered that I heard about Blender a couple times already. So I gave it a shot and did the first project. In it was a simple bookshelf. I didn't know anything about lighting, shading, nothing. And it didn't look like anything, but at least not to me. But for the client, it already made a big difference. Like, oh yeah, that looks good. We'll take that. Yeah, that could actually be a sales point for me. And so that's when I really developed my Blender journey and got more into it and started watching more tutorials. And I think the first kitchen I designed, it was all kinds of round cubes, and I had no idea what I was doing. No scales applied, no nothing. It was a gong show, actually. But the more I dove into it, the precision eventually developed, and I got an idea of how to do it. And yeah, it eventually just completely replaced CAD and everything. And here we are.
Interesting. So you come from a CAD, very precision-based modeling background. Yes. You picked up Blender as a potential replacement for that, which I think a lot of people try this, but I see a lot of complaints that it's not precise enough. So what was it? I assume you ran into the similar things, but what was it that got you over the hump to not ditch it, but like keep going and Blender can work out?
Oh my God. Blender and precision. Yeah, that is a can of worms that you open there. If you look at one of my most successful videos on YouTube, which is about precision and if Blender can do it, in the comment section, it either goes one way or the other.
Okay.
And I still wonder why. It's not like I found anything specific in the beginning that told me Blender is precise if you do it this way. I just tried it, and then I think first I discovered all the dimensions in the end panel. I'm like, okay, that tells me that. Then eventually, as I progressed, the edit mode, edge length overlay, then came to measure it. And eventually I just tried one little thing. I designed it in Blender and I looked at the measurement. By then I actually knew that I had to apply the scale. And I tried it and it just worked out perfectly. I wrote my cut list by hand from what I saw in Blender. And it just worked. I'm like, yeah, who says Blender is not precise? Yeah, Blender is not specifically designed for that workflow. And yeah, you have to do a little bit of messing around with it. And some things are a little more tedious and complicated than they are maybe in CAD. But it definitely is possible. And once you get the workflow down, it's fast.
Interesting. I kind of approached Blender similarly in that I was coming from commercial software, Maya, 3D Studio Max, ZBrush. I mean, I liked, at one time, it was a badge of honor to see how many softwares can I learn for this art form. And so I came to Blender, I think, just thinking it's free, so there's no barrier to entry, but like it's free. You're going to get what you pay for. It's going to disappoint me, but I'm going to try one project wholeheartedly and see what happens. And it's like that framing of the expectation, I expect to be disappointed, ended up being flipped, right? Where I couldn't do everything the way I was used to, and I had to fumble around and stuff, but like key workflows or features of tools that I did not expect to work out totally worked out, even if I had to do it a little bit of a different way. And that developed very early on this, I guess, appreciation that the tools are there and they might not be conventional and some things might be harder to do here than other software, but I can get it done, and that's all I really want to do anyway.
That's right.
So you have experience with CAD tools. That was one of my questions, if that was your background. So then what's one area that Blender works better than CAD?
I think it's a visual thing. It's so much easier to visually put something together in Blender, I find. It's a personal preference. I have not really worked with stuff like 3ds Max. Like, it was all AutoCAD, and doing 3D in AutoCAD is a little bit meh. It's tedious too, and I guess 3ds Max is a little easier. Yeah, for me, it's more a visual thing. It's just like for my clients. I see what I'm building while I'm modeling it, so that gives me a better idea on details and how to design it and how to fit it in their space, and the technical aspect of the precision and everything. That's just something, to me, it comes natural.
Yeah.
Like I build something in Blender, I add a panel, for example, I have the dimensions there. So where's the problem there, right?
Yeah.
The precision is there. I mean, the measurement I pull out of Blender is exactly what I have to cut. So there's the precision. What's nice is the visual aspect, and then the rendering and everything. That's the great thing about Blender.
Okay. That's, I think, what I was expecting your answer to be. What brought you to Blender is that access to a proper like shading and lighting and rendering, set of features is very different from CAD.
For sure.
Okay. So then, opposite question, what's one area that CAD works better than Blender, if you can just pick one?
Probably line drawings.
Okay. And that's kind of the export process, taking a digital model and exporting.
Yeah, export process is still something that we'll have to find a solution for.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people complaining about that too. Not a great solution right now.
Yeah, I mean, line drawings have gotten better. I mean, there is Measure It Arc, which can be a little bit quirky, I call it. And there's that new extension, which I still haven't tried. So line drawings are slowly getting better and better. The biggest thing for my industry that's still not really possible is getting dimensions into a cut list based on data instead of the object. You can export stuff out of the object data like you would see in the end panel, but then you would have to model everything as a separate object. Like every cabinet body would have to have 2, 4, 6, 7, I don't know how many separate objects, instead of just modeling as one object, and then you pull dimensions, let's say, out of a vertex group or something. So that's still one area where Blender is lacking, and I haven't found a decent add-on for that yet either.
Okay. But yeah, if you model at the object level, you lose a lot of access to like powerful tools, mesh modeling tools. Okay,
yes.
Yeah, that is an issue.
And the list in the outliner would just get so long if everything was its own object.
Oh, you're right. Unmanageably long.
Yeah, it would be crazy.
Okay. Huh, that seems like it's not the craziest add-on to develop, is like a data-based system for exporting a cut list.
Yeah, you would think so.
Maybe someone
I don't know how to do it.
Inspired. So if I was a genie that could grant 3 Blender upgrades that would make your precision workflow easier, can I assume that number 1 would be the cut list based on data? And what would be 2 other genie wishes for updates to Blender in this workflow?
I don't know. When it comes to precision modeling, it depends a lot on what industry do you work in. Like, I think for my purposes, I don't really have any wishes for Blender. I'm pretty sure other industries would have more requests, but that's just the nature of Blender being a polymodeler, where if you go a CAD, which works on math formulas, that is something where I think industries that work with machine parts that require a high level of precision and up to zero tolerance, that's just something that Blender cannot compete with. So I don't know if wishes would actually solve that problem.
Okay.
For my workflow personally, if I could export a cut list out of it, I'd be happy.
What's so interesting is in that answer is I deeply relate to what you're describing, which for me is a seasoned, experienced artist, and you're professional. You've been using these tools, but also Blender for several years, and you kind of approach Blender less demanding. On the other end, you see in YouTube comments or in online forums who probably are not producing compelling artwork. They're probably not leaning into experience, but they're at the surface of what's going on. And they're very demanding. This part of Blender is bad, and that's why I don't use it. Or they're so dismissive of it. But the better artists that I know, the more experienced ones, the ones who maybe come to it with better expectations, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but at this point in my journey, I don't have these wish list things anymore. I don't think like, oh, if this one thing was better in Blender, I would be happy. I have too many years of just, okay, I can't do this quite yet. How can I work around it to still get a good enough result? And I've done that so long that I don't need these updates in Blender to facilitate what I want to do. All the tools are there and they're good enough that I can figure it out. So I relate to having no list ready to go, no genie list. I've just, it's worked for me for too many years to need upgrades almost.
Yeah, I think the vocal minority, or however you want to call it, I think that's a bigger problem in terms of what to use, and not just when it comes to 3D software. You have that in pretty much any aspect. You got Ford drivers against Ram drivers. You got Harley riders against BMW riders. You got Blender users against 3ds Max or Revit or Rhino or you name it, right?
Yeah.
Opinions seem to be always extreme.
Yeah.
So I've made a series about modeling accurate floor plans in a house and all that. And one of the first comments that I got was, how to model a precise house. Open Revit. Dumb. Yeah, no, this is a Blender tutorial. Thank you.
Kicking off the software wars. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, instead of complaining, I don't know if that complaining is always worth it.
Right.
Like if you want to use a different software, use a different software.
Right.
I'm not somebody that is fixated on one thing and refuses everything else.
Right.
So I'm a big fan of using the tool that gets the job done.
Now, you did not say the best tool. I gave up on even believing in the best tool a long time ago. I just want to use a tool that gets the job done. I'm not entitled, or I'm not hell-bent on only using the best tool as if that's the only tool that gets the job done.
Okay, so here's the question. How do you define the best tool?
I think it's a myth. I don't think it's a
Right?
thing you can define.
Exactly. So every tool, let's stay with the 3D software. Even 3ds Max, the industry standard, it probably does a lot of things in the best way. But I'm pretty sure it has a lot of downsides too, where other tools do it a lot better. So I just choose the tool that gets the job done. Whether that's supposedly the best or not, I don't care. If the tool gets the job done, I'll use it.
Yes.
If it has a certain name and it doesn't get the job done, then what's it good to me?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's how I see it. So
I totally agree. And the very young me, the person who had the least amount of experience, I thought that was so important. I want to learn all the tools so I can know the best, and I'm going to use the best. And it took me years to realize that's a silly question. I think we see a lot of software wars fought over that lower level question.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think it switched from being the best tool to now it's this threshold of competency. Whether it does it the quote unquote best, who cares? I'm done wasting time on that conversation. Yeah, but if it gets it done well enough, that's all you need to create the things we're here for in the first place.
Yeah. When you dive into something that the software is not specifically designed for, you get a lot of that conversation. I don't even really engage in those comments. I just
kind of trolling at this point.
There's I get comments like, yeah, this video seems like more like use Blender for the sake of Blender and not to get the job done. I'm like, no, it's a video that shows that this is possible in Blender. That's all. That's where that's where it stops. I'm just showing it's possible in Blender. Yeah. If you don't want to use it, okay,
yeah,
fine.
And your results speak for themselves. That's a part of it too. There's this, Blender has a cult-like component to it, and that has to, that's relevant. It's a different conversation, but I think there are people, in other words, that just use Blender for the sake of using it. They like following this open source software, at the cutting edge and blah, 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 but they're not actually creating much with it. So there's that, but you're not that, let's see. Do you want to shout out any particular like tutors who were especially instrumental in teaching you how to use Blender?
Aside from CG Cookie?
Definitely. But I appreciate that.
I sort of kind of jumped around a lot when I started. On YouTube, I jumped through a lot of videos. Obviously I follow the big ones like Ducky and Gleb and these guys, but specifically to my workflow, I think it basically comes down to just learning the tools and then adapting it to what I need.
Maybe people don't know that you started at CG Cookie as a member first. Like that's, as you started to kind of rise through the community, we noticed you, and then ultimately led to you making a course for us. So I don't want to turn this into a CG Cookie plug necessarily, but it sounds like that was a different learning experience than you are used to.
What drove me to it was structure, definitely. So the problem I have with YouTube, even though I do YouTube tutorials, there is often a lack of structure, which goes back to the quick ones, follow these steps and you get that result. So what ultimately drove me to CG Cookie is that there's a learning structure to everything. Like you get the basics and the fundamentals explained thoroughly before you get into project-based courses. And that ultimately led me to CG Cookie and made me stay there.
Okay. Wow. That means a lot from an artist like you, or from someone who has such an intentional need to learn Blender or desire to learn Blender. There's a little more pressure maybe on learning it effectively. And so for you to say that coming from that place means a lot. We always love to see this kind of full circle thing where I was a CG Cookie member before I joined. Jonathan Lampel, CG Cookie member before he joined, and this is your first course. And you did a great job. So I'm excited to see where we go next with you. With that being a great segue, do you have more carpentry-oriented Blender courses that you would like to teach?
I have no specific concept in mind right now, because we just wrapped up CRAFTSMAN and I've been busy in the shop wrapping up a couple client projects. But yeah, I definitely want to keep going on that route.
Excellent. Well,
for sure.
I have some ideas I want to pitch to you. I won't do it here, but we will talk soon about that.
Definitely.
Sascha, thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you. Thanks for doing this interview, and thanks for CRAFTSMAN.
Yep. Thank you.